Welcome back to LDF-Designs. In today's video I'm going to be working on this little wood monolith. It is a solid walnut piece. I think it's about 5 or 6 inches square and then 2 inches deep. I have prepared this with a mixture, it's this regular mixture that I've been using lately, and I colored it with some paint. I also have been working with some plaster and created just a small box shape and attached that on there as well as the metal piece. So once I got all of those pieces attached, I went ahead and let that dry completely, and at this point I'm going to start applying the encaustic. As usual, this big round metal piece did make it a little challenging to do the sides because I couldn't lay it on its side to work on the opposite side, so I kind of had to hold it. I had to be very careful with my fusing, and so just know that obviously if you are working with items like this, just to be very cautious with your fire and your heat. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and start putting the encaustic onto this piece that I created. I took some metal mesh wire and I applied some plaster wrap material to that and added a little bit of the staining ink and the plaster basically, and let that dry. It is not perfectly square like the piece that I've attached it to, but I'm okay with that. I like the contrast between the square item and the item that is not square. Once I had the piece thoroughly covered with a couple of layers of encaustic, I went ahead and started to build up some texture in some areas and started to create some marks that I'll be filling in with the tar, and that's what I'll be doing here in this next section. So in this situation, I took a little bit of the extra metal mesh and I laid it on there and put some encaustic over the top of it, kind of used it as a stencil. And then after that cools a little bit, I'll add a little more encaustic to the top of that and again fill all of this in with the tar and vegetable oil. Because I don't normally keep this little bowl with the tar cup in it covered, sometimes that tar does start to dry out a little bit on the surface and can make it a little bit challenging for me to work with. I can either just add a little more, or I usually just continually add a little bit of vegetable oil to try to help keep it malleable. The next thing I was doing here is, again, just using some of the things I have in my little toolkit to make some circles, make some shapes. I've stated before that oftentimes I do like to put my filler compound, whatever it is that I'm using, onto the piece, and then I will make my marks into that. I do it both ways, but sometimes it helps me see a little bit more where I'm placing the marks when I already have some of the tar mixture on there. This is one of your first times watching my videos. I do use vegetable oil as my blending medium very often. It works across a lot of mediums. It works with the tar, it works with oil paint, it works with oil pastels and pan pastels, and I like that it is vegetable oil, so it's generally not toxic, and also it's pretty inexpensive. You can pick it up at most of the dollar stores pretty inexpensively. So I tend to use that vegetable oil as my blending medium almost exclusively. At this point, I decided to try to start working the sides a little bit. Again, it was challenging because I couldn't lay it down. Was trying to figure out if I could set it up somehow to make that work, and just kept working with it. It's kind of what you have to do. I stated in my last video that I love putting my substrates together this way, but oftentimes the metal and the things that I'm adding to my substrates to give them that extra character can be really challenging to work around. So just keep that in mind when you're building them. Know that you're going to need to be patient and creative in order to figure out how to make them how you want them. I have some little pieces of wire that's real malleable, and I like to bend it into different shapes and push it into the wax. And this little tool here is actually, I don't know if it has to do with pasta or I think it's a pasta wheel, but it creates little dots that I really like making. So using that, the only thing with it, I tend to put my marks in when my wax is still kind of warm. I think a lot of artists, or many artists out there, probably let it cool a little bit more. At least that's been my experience from watching other artists work. But I'm not very patient when it comes to that. So I usually am working with a somewhat warm wax, so it can clog up those little wheels. I usually just put a little heat on them to melt the wax back off and then dry them with a paper towel. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and work the top of the piece and basically do the same thing. I've got a paint sponge roller that I'm using there. I dip that into the wax and kind of create these organic circle shapes. Again, one of my favorite things lately that I love to work with. So adding that texture, going to add the tar to color it in. And once I get that done, just do a few finishing things to it here, and that will be close to wrapping up this video. I don't show in this video the actual completed piece. I did add some things to that metal wire, and I do have pictures of that over on my Instagram page if you'd like to see the finished piece. I'll try to also add a picture at the end of the video here, so you can see how it turned out. But basically that's how this one went. So I really appreciate that you stuck around and watched me finish this piece, and I hope that if you have not subscribed, you'll go ahead and click that subscribe button. Feel free to leave me a comment. I love to get the feedback from everyone, and other than that, I will see you in the next video.